So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the cash collections workshop now. Cash collections procedures, as you can see. And what we'll want to do is follow the same format as before. So we'll talk a little just briefly about the workshop goals and the format, the overview, then right into the procedures, and then we'll have a discussion. So last one was good. We'll just do the same, all right? So first we covered tamper bag and the goals that you walk away with, a continuing that same goal of having a better understanding of cash collection procedures. This one will be a little bit shorter just because it's scheduled that way. Madeline did buy us a little time. I think lunch is just now getting set up, so I think the questions will die down when the food smell peaks. So this looks similar to before, so I don't have to walk you through the whole stewardship administration. But I did want to focus on, what we were talking about here in this group. So the church, the reception, festivals, religious articles, and then if you have one, a thrift store. So everything that we've spoken of so far is right here in the church, right? It's the cash controls in the church, collecting offertory, using the tamper bags. So think about this. This is just a variation on the same theme. So you're right. So really, some of you could come up here and say, "Hey, I'll tell you what to do because we're going to follow everything we did with the tamper bags and the control logs and the bag inventories and all that." So keep that in mind as we walk through. So in the overview, we're going to talk first about the count team. So this is taking those bags that came in and counting them. Then the front office, how to receive things at the front office and stay within Dawson policy. Events, how to conduct your event and remain within Dawson policy for cash collections in Section F of the business practices. And then also with religious articles and thrift stores. So first we're going to talk about the count team. And I think the count team is kind of the unsung or undervalued individuals in the parish. Yes? All the count team members go, yes! That's right. Yay. Exactly. Because as we started earlier, we said that, in the early days of the church, that can you imagine if Peter was having to count money and forgive sins? Might have been the same thing, but as he was doing that, there's no way he could have expanded the ministry, right? So what he did is they set up the deacons and they delegated. So you guys are taking part in that ministry, right? So, but even though we're doing that, we trust you because you're in a position of a lot of trust. But you still have to follow these procedures. And the reason why you want to follow them is because you don't want to be blamed if something goes wrong. There are 3 things I will never, ever do when I retire in a parish. Usher, count team, volunteer are the top 2, okay? And finance committee member. And the reason why is because there's some responsibility here, right? So you always have to have 2 people, even when it gets to the count team. If you have a count team of 3, then you know what? Only one person can go out of the room at the same time, at a time. So there's 2 people always with the money, right? So if you only have 3, your takeaway from this meeting should be get 4, right? Expand your team. And the other thing is those people that are on the team, they have to be unrelated. So if you have a husband and wife, then you technically need to get, and you only have 3, then technically you need to get, right? Other individuals so that the related individuals don't work together. 2 count teams. I know a lot of parishes only have 1 count team, but we'll talk a little bit about the size and structure, and you really should look at expanding. And there's a great book on mindset by Carol DeWick. And BB&T, we work with them a lot on different parishes, and some of you parishes are working with them. And they had a series that we got to partake in, and it was a little bit about the mindset, looking at challenges and such. And whenever these things seem like a challenge, you got to create it as an opportunity, right? So maybe in your table discussion, if your challenge is how do we expand our volunteers, then make that a topic that you go over and ask other people, and then hopefully that'll be something we can share at the end. Then over here, the members, because you want to have a large enough group, that they rotate. So that means if you only have one count team, at least you have enough members where it's not the same individuals each week. Ideally, 2 count teams, right? So we have 1 week on, 1 week off, 2 weeks on, 1 month on, 1 week off, but give them a rest and a break, right? And then as well, the duties rotate, right? So we can't have the same individual doing the same thing every time. Rotate them. And that's, again, not saying, we don't trust you and all that. It's saying this way you're more protected, right? So on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the count team. Now, I compared them, if you will, to a parish finance council because I think they're that valuable. And so based on the parish's size right here, that should dictate what your count team needs to be. So obviously minimum of 3, you can't have less than 3. If you're a really small parish, then maybe you could get by with 3, but probably, like we just said, you probably should advance to 4. And maybe it's 5. So that you don't have to have every single person there. So maybe if you're a count team member at a parish where there's 5 members on one team, at least you get to take 1 day off a month, right? Or 1 week off. The other thing is if you're a larger parish with lots of activity, a medium-sized parish, then maybe you need more count team members to get through it. Your count team, what's the ideal time do you all think? I say about 2.5, 3 hours that you're there counting, or less, right? So you want to make sure you have enough members to stay within that. And then just the volume as well. So here there's some factors determining the count team size. So it's the offertory amount, not based on Christmas and Easter, but the average week. What complexity do you have? Do you have a lot of second collections? Is there some seasonality in it? And then what else are they counting? And we'll go through that more in a minute. And then the member qualifications. Teresa started down this road and touched on this with the safe environment, and I'm going to echo it, that they all have to be background screened and safe environment. The other thing is the count team members, it's good to have somebody experienced, right? One of our team members was a former teller, and I didn't know that, and we went to help out a parish, and when she started counting cash, it's Lamaris Crespo. When she started counting cash like she worked in Vegas, I knew we were set. So think about that for yourselves. Find that former teller because she not only was able to count, she was able to verify, she was able to go through. So those are great skill sets. And in some of the parishes that we've worked with, that we've seen that where the individual monitoring the count team, oversaw the tellers. Because that's really what you're doing, right? Very similar, so apply that. And then I'm going to throw an idea out, treating this like a finance council. If you're having trouble getting volunteers, my question to you, is it because it's a lifetime assignment? Right? If you know, then that's why I'm not going there. If you know that you get an opportunity to do it for a year or 2, but then you're off, yeah, you'll help out, but you don't want to get stuck in there over and over, right? So exactly. So think about that. And then the teams need to rotate, 2 teams and rotate, and then the duties rotate, just to make sure that you have good controls around, right? And the other thing as well, the person that, if you rotate, then that should speed up your team, right? Because everybody's going to get good at all the different areas. And then utilize your parish finance council to help you kind of review this and make recommendations and let them, as volunteers, help you find some of those other volunteers. Any questions on this section? If not, we're going to go on. Now, let's talk about, it's Monday on a normal week. The count team's assembled, and what do we do? So the count team should, 2 members, be waiting until at least 3 folks show up, right? 2 of those are going to go and they're going to collect all the tamper bags. So they're going to go to the safe where the offertory is kept. They're going to go to the pour boxes. They're going to go to the votive candles. They're going to go to reception. They're going to go to religious articles and thrift shop. Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am, we need a microphone over here. And this is Lamaris, by the way.
Do we need to have, when you empty the pour box, the votive candles, do we need to have tamper-proof bags at that point? How is that supposed to look? Before you got into it, I wanted to ask.
No, good question. So what you want to do is on your master log, when you go back to the parish, use this as your guideline. Not your master log, sorry, but your bag inventory, you're going to go ahead and figure out how many extra bags need to be issued. Add that to the control log, because remember you're printing two, one goes to the head counter. And then what you're going to do is use those bags to go out and collect those items. So the two people are going to be with the cash, dumping the pour box, the votive candles, and reception, and putting it in the tamper bag so that you can go back to the count room. And those could be smaller bags, by the way, right? You can get an idea of what that needs, and you're not going to dump it, you're going to have to handle it, so it can be that smaller bag. But it has to be two individuals with it at the same time.
Okay.
So once you get back, what are you going to do? So you're going to go to the secure count room, and this is a count room layout. And you can see I put a perimeter around it, and then there's one door, so the door gets closed and locked. That's what our auditors always recommend. Once the room's secure, we're going to go ahead and review the log. And before you touch any of the bags, the two people are going to review the head counter, and somebody else are going to review the control log and check off all of the bags and make sure that the bags that went there came back. They had all the signatures that were required, the numbers matched, and the tags were all there from the bags. And that's why you're going to have that second log printed into the head counter, because what if it goes missing? Then at least you have a control that you knew what you're expecting to come out in terms of bag inventory. Count team duties will be assigned. Two people doing the same thing at the same time. So let's go back to the count team layout. So either directly across or side by side. So you can't have, if you look at the individuals, and I think you can see this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So one would be your head counter that's monitoring the process, maybe even running a backup tape. 2 and 3 could be working together, but also 2 and 4, as long as they're not related, right? Now, if you have a couple, then obviously they're not going to be, a husband and wife can't be 2 and 3 or 2 and 4. So if husband and wife, it's got to be like 2 and 7 if you got that combination, right? Does that make sense? Does that track with what you're used to hearing and seeing? Well, so that's what you'll want to work towards. Then what we'll want to do is you count and create the deposit. And my councilman reminded me. Oh, we have a question right here.
We've been told that we need to count by mass. Okay, when we count by mass, do we need all these people per mass?
Well, again, it depends on the size of your parish. And if you determine that, hey, our optimal count team size is 4, then what you can do is 2 teams can be counting each mass, or 2 different masses.
Well, we have about 8 to 10 people that count. We have 5 masses.
Okay.
So it doesn't take us 2.5 to 3 hours. Since
That's
we
great.
started counting by mass, it takes us about 4 to 5 hours.
Okay. So ideally,
I don't know
let's talk
how
through.
to fix that.
Yeah, let's talk through that. So what you'll want to do is like in this layout, you could be counting 3 masses at one time, right? Because you have a team here. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3. So you could have 3 teams going, right?
Okay.
So technically what you're doing is you're counting 3 masses at one time. And then once they're counted, they would go to the head usher to verify the deposit and the math on your deposit slip. Does that make sense? Does that sound in line with what you're doing now?
Oh, okay, we can work at that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Does anybody have a recommendation that they'd like to share on this? Cynthia, right here. Lamaris, there's
Me?
right here. Cynthia Van Nostrum.
You. Oh, sorry.
Michael,
Oh, yes.
hi. We have a rather large counting team, and they're set up that one table does first collection, one table does the second collection. We do 7 masses in under 2.5 hours,
That's perfect.
but we have 14 people. They do one mass after another. We never open 2 masses at one time.
As a group, they're doing one collection? Okay.
One
That-
table is doing the first collection, one table does the second collection.
That certainly was within Dawson policy.
And it keeps it moving,
Right.
and they're very good at what they do.
Right. You know, when we set this up, if you recall what I said at the beginning, it's very similar to issuing a chart of accounts. You know, where this is the policy, this is the layout, but you might need sub-accounts. That, to me, is another one of those items where you have a sub-account, you have a tweak. Again, it's within policy because you have the required number of people and you're getting the job done. So, and somebody can leave the room and it doesn't upset the process and all of that. Cindy?
We actually have tables for each of the mass times, and we also have, if we can. So we have 4 to 5 different teams of
Right.
3 to 4. And then we have what we call a miscellaneous table that handles the votives, our resale shop, and those items.
Right. That's perfect. Yeah. Again, more than 2, right behind you, Lamaris. Anything you can do is to do it quicker and stay within policy. And again, the more volunteers, like how many volunteers do you have? Over 40. How many for each week, for 1 week? 30 come for each week. Okay. So you're going to lead the part on how to expand the count team.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So we have 9 counters generally, but we have a group of 3 that open the bags and count the loose cash separately for each mass. And then they just put all the envelopes into a box that's labeled by each mass so that as our individual count teams get done, they just grab another box to start on, and that's how we keep the masses separate.
Okay.
But we have 6 masses, and we get done in 2-ish hours.
Right. You know, again, there's different ways to carve it up. You know, I wanted to give a guidelines, you know, primarily to those that just had, you know, a fewer number of members. But there's some great ideas and great feedback with respect to how to expand it. Then when it's done, the one thing that Mike Halsma asked me, I'm going to get this one first.
Thank you. My question has to do with the collection of the money.
Yes?
What do we do with the mass stipends? And we do have a thrift store, and they come with the money in an envelope, but it's not a tamper bag.
Right.
And they put that in the safe.
Right. How do your mass stipend? Well, the thrift shop, you said thrift shop, right?
Yes.
We'll do that in a minute. But how tell us about the stipends?
The stipends are collected in the front desk.
Oh, okay. Then we'll talk about that next.
And okay.
Yeah, but this is following on the tamper bags coming out of the safe from masses. So that's what we're doing here, and then we'll talk about the
Okay.
front desk next.
Gotcha.
Perfect.
Thanks.
We have right here in the front, Ruth.
We have a total of 7 people on our team. We have
So you have 7 people on your team.
each team. We have 2 teams, and we have 5 masses. Each person takes a mass, and we have a person at the head table, and we have 1 team that does 2 people count the mass because it's a large mass. And we get done in what? 2 hours max.
Right. The only thing that if you want to be within Dawson policy is 2 people doing the same thing at the same time. So in other words, 2 people counting the same bag. So having them work together. That was something that Mike Halsema. So what I did is I put this together. We had some dialogues with some of the audit firms, and then I had Mike Halsema review it. And so Mike Halsema came back, and there were a couple of points that he wanted to make. And one was 2 people doing the same thing, right? So that there's that control. Because if you only have one person dealing with one tamper bag, then you kind of broke down the 2 people with the bags and all at the same time.
When we had our audit, the auditor watched them do it, and she was fine with it.
Okay. And who audited you? No, I'm teasing. Well, you know, I think what we're trying to do is we're going back and we're like issuing a new chart of accounts, and there's going to be some sub-accounts and things like that. The auditors were really keen on this, and sometimes the auditors across the firms are consistent, but there's a little variation on a theme. And so what we'll do is we'll work with the auditors. If you passed last time, there's a chance you'll pass this time, because maybe they saw a segregation of duty and a control there that we're not picking up while you're explaining it to us. But if you want to, the tamper bag credit is $500. And that includes through the tamper bags coming out. So this is what I'm doing is saying, hey, your attendance today, implement this way, and on your next parish review, your credit's going to be this much for the tamper bags. are roughly right in there. It may not be 500, but it's prorated small, medium, and large. It used to be 500, now it's prorated based on your size. But anyway, so that's that. And so the other point that he wanted me to make is that if there's an error, so like it gets counted by team 1, the red team, and it goes to the head counter. If they can't come up to this and match, then it goes back. They don't correct it. It goes back to the team, and then they correct it. And then it comes back up to them for review. So that was an important point that from our auditors, they wanted that followed. The other point is once everything that comes into that count room as cash goes right into the bank. Nothing, no changes made, no money's taken out for anything else. And then what happens is if you need to make a transfer, second collection, OCA, St. Vincent de Paul, whatever it is, you do it with a check and you trace it. So all the cash comes in the count room, all the cash is counted and bagged up, cash and checks. Checks today are as fungible, and then it goes into the to the bank and then goes out. Now, right here, I want to talk. We already touched on it. 2 things: best practice recommendation, not required, but strongly recommended, is that utilize an armored car with as much as possible. A few parishes have said we can't, and they've given very valid reasons why they can't. That the auditors also supported. However, if you can afford it, or for numerous reasons, then get the armored car. It's not that expensive, and don't just bid them. Go Loomis, Dunbar, Brinks. When you're out for lunch, when you're driving home, when you're driving back to work, look what armored cars you see on your route. Chances are, adding a pickup to an existing route is not that expensive. But if Brinks has to come off of the 95 to A1A, they're going to charge you a little bit for that. But if they're already driving by, they're probably not going to be as expensive. Does that make sense? And it's for obvious reasons, right? With the way the climate and things are going and the financially, we're just waiting on that one time when a account team's going to get robbed on the way to the bank. Bag retention, we already touched on it. It's 3 months. A rolling 3 months of bags that you're keeping. Anything that comes out that doesn't fit, non-tamper, any questionable, then save that a little longer just to see if it repeats. All right, now let's talk about the front office. So again, inspect to support, not to challenge them, but help them. Always have 2 people with the money at all time. So how do you do that with reception? You have 1 receptionist. We're not asking you to hire 2. So what we're asking you to do is to utilize, and this was another point from the auditors, a triplicate receipt book. Not a dual receipt book, dual receipt, but a triplicate receipt. And so somebody walks in, there's our kind receptionist. The kind gentleman wants to pay a mass stipend. So he just wants to drop it off, starts turning. That's where he goes, oh, wait, come back. You forgot your receipt. And then she calls him back, and then they issue the receipt. And why are they doing that? They're doing that because at this point in time, there are 2 people with the money. Even though one doesn't work there, there's still 2 people with the money. The original's filled out, and it goes to the donor, and it matches exactly what needs to be, that donation's being given for. The yellow copy goes with the donation and goes into your small dual combination safe reception. And this was under $200 on Amazon. And then the transaction's finished. So think about that. The donor took the original. There's a copy in the safe with the money, so you can track and say, if it's cash, it goes for mass stipends. If it's cash, it was just an offertory drop and they forgot their envelope, then you'll have that. And then the pink copy stays in the register. So then what happens is when the account team's coming around, they're also going to pick up the book and verify it to what's in the safe, bag those up, take them and count them. Any questions on that? And this is another one that's been reviewed by the auditors and recommended as well. Because again, we can't increase the number of staff you have to remain within policy. So I think back there was first. Hold on a second, Kathy. Yes, ma'am.
What about the checks that come in the mail that are for offertory and such?
Right. That's a good question. Right here. So let's close out the other, and then we'll talk about that. It's going to be the same. So we want to handle it the same. Two people, really technically, two people have to open the mail, right? And anything that looks like a deposit, you could just bag up, send to the drop safe, and then deal with it there. Right, with the count team.
Michael?
Yes.
So you're suggesting that every transaction at the window in the reception area is just put into the safe by itself, like paper clipped?
Yeah, just a copy of the receipt, paper clip to it.
So
and
the
dropped
money?
in. That's
Okay,
right.
and then how do you handle, oh, I want a mass, but I have a $50 bill, I need change?
Oh, so there's always a curveball. Then if you really get that a lot, where people are coming in and they need that change, then you're going to have a drawer at your front desk, just like you do at your religious article or your thrift shop. Yep, and then there's going to be. But here's the deal: when the count team comes around, they're going to count the drawer to verify the drawer, and then they're going to take what's in the safe. So it just adds a layer of control. But if that's what's happening, that's what you got to do. Let's see if there's anything else. That on this, just touching base on the mail, the same thing. Just going back to it, two individuals opening the mail and then bagging it up. Yes, ma'am. Wait, there's a mic coming for you.
I just want to understand. Did you say that all the money, the poor box, everything goes into the main money?
So what I was saying is that the count team, as part of their process, they go collect funds and cash and checks from every location. And it was all those locations if we go back one slide. So it's going to be offertory, poor box, votive candles, pamphlets, reception, and then religious articles, right? And thrift shop. So they would go around with a tamper bag and collect those items, seal it up, and go back to the count room. And then they would count that.
Okay, but separately.
Yeah, it would be separate, and there would be a separate deposit for thrift store, food pantry, or all of those different items. I didn't mention food pantry.
Okay, that's just, okay. Just
Yeah.
wanted to understand that.
Right. But
Thank
so
you.
basically, this list can expand. Any area that you're collecting cash, you're just going to, it's a variation on the theme. You're going to use the tamper bags, you're going to track it, you're going to get it to the count room and let the counters. And this is another reason why you might need to expand your count team size. So let's quickly talk about events. Again, same process, variation on a theme. So the recommendation from the auditors is to use tickets as opposed to cash at the festival. Then if you need to track if a group's doing well, there's a standard ticket price. Every food booth gets its own bucket, so you can still see who sold the most tickets or whose items were the most sought after, right? You're going to establish this based on the easy amount. The easiest is going to be 50 cents or $1, something like that, so that you can easily make change for those things when at your ticket booths. And then from there, those denomination of tickets go by the goods, right? Now, if you look here, you're going to set your prices accordingly. Set the prices according to the ticket value for like a cupcakes. If it's a 50-cent ticket, maybe it's a 2-ticket cupcake. Establish the booths in strategic locations. So I put 4 on this layout with respect to a carnival. And then in the booths, there are 2 ticketed cleared individuals, right? So here you would have to have 8 working at any one shift to be within Dawson policy. And then you would also need for the cash pickups, and this is a good recommendation, is that 2 cleared individuals or 1 cleared individual and a police officer would go to all the booths to pick up cash, right? And then that goes back to a count team, and then the same thing as before. Variation on the theme, we're just doing our same count team. Money goes in the bank, all the ministries are happy, and goes forward. Now, if you think the tickets seem like a hassle, I did this when my daughter was in the 8th grade. I had to work at a festival, and I had a ball doing it. And I got a little bored in the middle of it. So what I did is I started upselling everybody. When they would come with, I need 10 tickets, and they'd pay with a 20. As I was making change, I'd say, would you like to donate that to the kids? And I got a lot of donations. So it's another way that you can kind of, enhance the sales by asking folks as they're buying tickets if they just want to donate their change. I'm always thinking for the next level. I'm always thinking about money for you guys. Yes, ma'am. So we have a question right here. I think I'm going to get in trouble for that comment.
How do you differentiate the ticket sales from the donation?
No. It all goes together. We don't. So I just saying they're just buying a ticket.
So
Well,
you
you
gave
do.
them more tickets?
Yeah. No.
No.
They wanted 10 tickets. They gave me a 20. I said, hey, can we just donate that in? So we put it in. We don't have to separate it. It was just ticket sales.
Back to the tickets. No. So you're not reconciling back to the tickets then?
So everything above your ticket sales, so you take the beginning number of your tickets. I've thought this through. You take your beginning number of the tickets, minus the ending, and that's the cash you should have. Count your cash and checks and reconcile, and the delta is going to be your donations. I wouldn't get a parish into trouble. All right, same thing with bingo. Here's what we're going to do. So cleared cash handlers during the event. Then the next thing we're going to do is, if possible, at the event, either have enough cleared cash handlers everywhere, even in the food booth, or here you can use tickets. You know, I know that might be a challenge, but I'm just saying if you can use tickets. The next is the proceeds counted by a count team. Here's an instance where you might want to expand and have a second count team. And yes, ma'am.
Michael, well, going back into the festivals,
Yes.
what we did was we created St. Isaac's money. So we sell St. Isaac's money. At the end of the day, that money needs to match the money, the cash that we have.
Was that a printed ticket that you?
Yes.
Okay.
Money,
So
like $1 and $5.
Okay, and that's a really good point, is that you want to make sure that those tickets can't be duplicated. So if you used red tickets this year, use blue tickets next year. If you use green tickets, then alternate them. If there's different denominations, then change the color among those denominations. A lot of parishes will just do these standard ticket rolls, and they'll change the color based on the year. You know, like maybe they'll rotate 3 or 4 colors in, so that way they're protected. So going back over to the bingo, this is an area where you might need that second count team, okay? And it doesn't have to be late at night after bingo. This could be the next morning where they come, and then the handle's the same way. Same count team style, structure. Money's bagged that night, goes into a drop safe close to the bingo location, and then it comes out and it's counted the next day. There's a question over here.
Is there a reason you couldn't deposit this in your church safe?
You could.
And count it on Monday with your count team?
You could. The only thing, and this is kind of a risk management issue, is that if your social hall is, if you have a large campus and your social hall is a quarter mile away, and the only way to get it there is 2 people are walking in the dark at 9 o'clock at night over to that drop safe, then you probably want to get another safe. Because you got to always think of the safety. But absolutely, you could use the same. Hopefully you can. And then just make sure it's big enough to handle, all the donations or collections. All right? So now I want to touch on the religious article and thrift shops and such. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, there's a question.
For the bingo, isn't there a bingo regulation where you have to deposit it that same week within the next day or so?
So yeah, you would just have your count team come the next morning. You wouldn't hold it over for the next count team session. You would just have your separate, if you have a large enough bingo, then you're probably going to have a bingo count team, and the bingo count team would show up the next morning.
Because if you have
and
bingo
count.
like on a Tuesday, the count team doesn't come until Monday. That has to get deposited that same week.
Yeah, exactly. So you would have that second count team. So you would have
Okay.
or have the count team come back. Another reason I'll never be a count team member. So, whoops. Right here, what we want to do is want to talk about religious articles and the inventory process, and then the thrift shop. So let's go to religious article stores. Ideally, what you'll want to do is have some system that you're tracking your inventory. And you'll want to do that for management purposes so that you can identify what you need to buy and when you need to buy it, so for sales. But the other thing as well, just to make sure you're verifying your inventory for slippage and such. If you don't have that, you still have to have a register at the front desk or at the checkout. And then what you're going to be doing is running your register at each one of the sales. At the end of the day, you're going to go back to your standard drawer. Everything over goes into a tampered bag along with a register receipt showing the sum total of the sales that day, which should theoretically match what's in the bag, right? 2 people, seal it up, it goes into a drop safe and waits for the count team. So that's the minimum. So it's, real quickly, minimum on a religious article is register, tracking sales, running a tape, go back to the minimum drawer, put it in the tamper bag, get it in the safe, and let either your count team or a special count team that handles that do it. But again, it has to follow all the same procedures. I think you had a question, Heidi.
Can we use receipts instead of a register?
What kind of receipts?
So we have a religious store that's only opened on the weekends during Mass. So we use a receipt book instead of a register. Is
so
that
you
okay?
follow everything like a front desk?
Correct.
That would be fine. I mean, but think about it. If here's my question, putting my controls hat off and put on my operations hat, are you missing sales because you're not turning them over quick enough?
So our receipts are like a long receipt. It's not as individualized as the ones we use at the front desk.
Could you take that receipt in your log and have your counters, are they sequentially numbered? Are those receipts?
Yes.
Yes? That should work. I mean, ideally, I think the safe's a little better way because it'd be quicker. But yes, you could do that.
Okay.
With thrift stores, you're not going to have inventory, right? Because you're going to get one green chair, one red chair, one leather coat, one cloth coat, right? You're never going to have 10 of the same thing. So you're going to follow the same thing as religious articles. A register or receipts, detailed receipts at the front, identifying what's coming in, everything going to minimum drawer, going to a tamper bag, to a drop safe, and waiting for the count team. Any questions? There's one over here. See, I think.
Thank you. So, Michael, I think you know our thrift store is kind of unique. So,
Right.
I mean, they actually treat it like a regular retail store, and they actually make the deposit up at the shop with 2 people, and then it gets taken to the bank by 2 individuals. Are we allowed to still continue to do that? Because if we hold it for a whole week, that's going to be too much cash on hand.
No, you could do, no, that's a great question. Because when you think about it, when we go back to the structure and the size and the complexity, you might have to have a daily count team or every other day count team. Yeah, no, that's a great, and
Well,
you don't want to
it's
build
not
up
actually a count team. It's 2 members that are actually down at the thrift store. One of them is the director, and the other one is one of the, like, a lead person for the day. They are the ones that make the deposit up.
Let's talk offline a little bit and just, it sounds right, just
Okay.
from what you're saying, but let's just make sure I'm not missing something on a control that would open up a window. Because again, it's not so much on this that I would go, oh, you're missing money or money slipping. As well, you don't want to put the 2 individuals who work really hard for this ministry in an opportunity where they can be accused of something where to break
Okay.
down on the
All right.
controls.
Thank you.
But yeah, it sounds right. And that's a really good point. The more frequent you have to count, that's fine. In fact, the better. That means your ministry is being funded more. All right. If there are no other questions, just real quick, because here's some of the questions. Let's just go over this for like 5 minutes, and I'm going to be really, really sharp. We're going to stop at 12, see if there's any follow-up, and then we're going to eat. All right? So I'll leave these questions up and let you go through them. Let's go ahead and wrap up real quick. We'll close this workshop out. We'll have lunch, and then we'll move on to the next one. So going back to this slide, Susan Hunt from the Catholic Foundation wanted me to really emphasize this. So all the cash that comes in for any collection, second collection, a Dawson collection of any type, during the OCA, if you have a second collection for OCA because you're trying to meet your goal, if you have those types of second collections, whatever comes in and goes in the tamper bag, it comes out, it gets counted and goes to the bank, whether it's cash or check. So no cash should ever be mailed as payment to the chancery, to the foundation, or any place else. I know, it seems simple, but it happens, right? Sometimes folks will mail cash. And we don't want to put our people in a situation where, you know, there's one person with the cash. Did I say checks? No, I'm asking. Yeah, I'm saying cash. So yeah, everything goes into the bank, and then that deposit amount, whatever needs to be remitted of it for OCA or anything else, gets issued or transferred with a check, one check. So in other words, so think about your OCA. You collect your OCA, the count team counts it. The cash portion, what do? You put it in your bank and you issue one check for it, right? So you follow that for everything. Or was there was a lot of discussion going on. Was there any follow-up points that you want to share?
Just back on count, one thing we did, we didn't have a shortage, but one time we had the bank say we were short $400, and we all panicked. So every week we collect all the garbage in the count room and retain it until the bank verifies because of what happened.
Oh, wow.
And so we know at least we've gotten everything out of the room, because we all were like, where's the $400?
Right. That's great. That's a great item to flag, because that happens, right?
Yes.
All right, one more in the back.
Yes. Well, I got two. Florida Catholic tells us to send their subscriptions to them.
Uh-huh.
So if we don't open that envelope and we're sending it to them, it has cash in it. Are we not supposed to do that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You know what I'm going to do? That's not my area, the Florida Catholic, and they're in the diocese, but they're at the Chancery. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with Kevin Casey, and we're going to find out if they need to send out a note to you as to change that because of what you flagged. I did not know that. Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, and the other question was, you know, when the count team comes on Monday morning and they empty the candle box money and they walk it across the room to the count room, they still need to waste a tamper-proof bag when it's the same two people that empty and walk it right across to the room. They want that money sealed in a bag so they can walk it across the room to the count room.
Well, here's the way I would look at it, is I would say yes, because again, that's why I'm not going to be a count team member, because there's too many holes and you get accused for something. But what I would say there is yes, and here's the reason why. Is that going to be counted immediately? Is it accidentally going to get knocked off the table and spill? All of those things. So that's why I would always say yes. Again, because remember, we're trying to safeguard those dollars. But what you could do in that is you don't have to use the great big bag. You could use the smaller, cheaper bag.
Okay.
A less expensive bag for that. Right. So Ruth Griffith up here was saying that they use a zipper bag. The auditors really frown on the zipper bags, and the reason why is you open it up, you seal it, you open it up, you seal it. You know, one for you, one for me can happen. Right? Again, I know it's expensive, but you know what? Think about this. It's really not that expensive in the grander scheme. Really, I'm going to rephrase what I just said. Think about the person, the individual, and I know they're in every parish, who just fit you in between the gas and the electric bill. Maybe ate a little bit less one meal, maybe didn't go to the movies, maybe didn't do something that they like to do so that they could give that to God. Let's just make sure that it gets the safe, that it hits the bank, and that it goes to that ministry and to the parish as a whole. All right? And with that, unless there's any other questions, let's say grace together. One more question. Everybody, then we'll go to grace.
Okay, I'm trying to understand the tamper bags in relations to the mass stipends or any money that comes in the front desk.
Right.
do we have to put that money, the stipends per se, so let's say the mass stipends, in a tamper bag at the end of the day?
No. What you're going to do, right here, so the individual comes, so first of all, the individual comes to the desk and they give you a mass stipend. So the receptionist is going to say, oh, wait, and she's going to fill out this and then send them on their way.
Right.
So the individual who gave it gets the original. The yellow goes into that little safe with the money. So
Okay.
the only time that would go into a tamper bag is when the count team's collecting it to go to the count room. That's when it goes into the tamper bag.
So when they open the safe, they put everything in a tamper bag?
That's
and
right.
then- oh, okay.
Then
Gotcha.
that's what it does. Right. Now, if something happens and those receipts don't match your little safe, then that's another question for another topic. Okay? All right.